Welcome to the Judgment-Free Zone. You've downloaded the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast with Matt and Amy, recorded live from the cornfields of Central Illinois. Welcome to episode number 79 for April 2nd, 2024.
Well, hello there, children. Welcome back to your weekly freak show that is the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. I am your slightly half-awake host, Matt, along with the always lovely and chipper Coach Amy with her Farrah Fawcett hair. How are you doing over there? Got that retro look going on today, don't you?
This is my look.
That's your mom look?
I think the retro look finally, caught up.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes if you just don't update, eventually it comes back around.
Okay, I've had my hair updated. We all know how many styles
I'm
I've
actually
had.
just surprised you're not wearing your fake hair today. That's usually what you're wearing. Your Juva bun. She's not a sponsor, but Amy's a huge fan of the Juva bun.
I'll tell you what, 3 seconds, it can be done.
Yeah, no link in the description. Google it yourself, kids.
I don't know why you have to bring up my secret about my hair.
Your secret. Your secret.
Why do you tell people? In fact, I don't even know if I want this aired.
The secret.
Seriously.
Well, how do they know? They never know.
Well, now they know.
Is that your real hair now, or is that not
This
your
is
real
my real hair.
I know it's your real hair. But how do you know?
There's no extension.
This is my real hair.
I'm lazy.
So am I. That's why I just have none. Saves me a lot of time.
I'm going to shave my head. I'll just be lazy.
You'd be like that chick on that episode of Friends.
Hi.
Oh,
Smooth.
yeah, I saw her head glistening in the moonlight. All right, kids. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to get started on your sober journey, don't forget to check out our Beyond Spirits, the 7 tips that helped us start our AF journey. And soon we'll have our marriage guide that you can get too.
Sure.
That's
Our marriage guide?
yeah.
No, it's not a marriage guide.
What is it? It's a marriage something. Something about marriage.
We have our other freebie, though.
Our marriage one? Oh no, we do have it. I don't have notes for it. You're right, we do. You're right.
It's our marriage weekly meeting guide.
Yes, that is out there. We'll link that in the description as well.
The guide that we use.
Yes, we do use it weekly. I love it. I do. We just did it yesterday.
That you obviously are so...
Well, it's been a minute since I did the...
So you need to add that back into the notes.
It is so new to the podcast and to us that even I forgot, Amy.
And it's really good.
It is. We use it every week.
We do. We use it weekly.
Literally, we use that exact same guide weekly.
Yes, and thank you to our friends, Mark and Jill. That is what we have learned through their podcast, or not their podcast, their program.
Yes.
It's been something that has been great, and you can check them out at Jill and MarkSavage.com or .org.
No, it's .com.
Is it .com?
I don't know. We'll put that in the description too. We have a lot of links for you kids this week. How about that? We're just so, you got to give me a bit of a break. We had a storm roll through. Power went out. I was up half the night trying to keep the sump pump running with backup power.
I slept like a baby.
Woke up this morning and go, Amy, did you see the power went out? She goes, no. I'm like, I literally came back to bed and one of these smart bulbs fell offline, so it's flashing. I'm like, you're in a disco and you're freaking dead asleep. I've been downstairs camped out on my office floor, being sure the basement doesn't flood. She's up there just sawing logs. Glad I can keep you in the lifestyle you're accustomed to.
Well, if anybody, I struggle with sleep sometimes,
but when it's a crisis, you don't struggle at all.
I like a storm, I guess. Apparently, a storm put me to sleep.
You thought it was like that little sound machine thing?
I didn't hear anything. I heard nothing. I didn't feel the dog panicking like you said. She was all
I know, you're like
crazy. I was gone.
I'm like, how are you that oblivious to that? But anyway.
And apparently we don't have elves in the basement to flip on the backup sump pump.
I'm like, I have to switch it over. I'm like, there's not like some gnome down there just cranking them. I guess you can get to in your defense, there are what's called an ace in the hole, which is a battery backup that
I thought that's what we
the
had.
Power. No, because those you have to babysit and take care of. And if I didn't in our old house, and then when you need to use it, it doesn't work. So we have a water backup, but then I want the power back. I have trouble.
He has a system. We've been watching the weather for days. It's coming.
And they lie like
the
usual.
storm
3
is
inches
coming.
of rain, you get 1 inch.
It's coming. This morning I went and I dropped a new sump pump. Okay. This is like 7:30 in the morning. I'm like, what?
I did.
When did you become a plumber?
Yes, that'll be my other podcast, my Matt's Plumber Cast.
You might want to have some real experts on then.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot about what not to do.
There
All
you
right,
go.
Coach Amy, we're going to be getting to Maureen's interview here in a second, but let's talk about our drinks of the week. Both of them from Generation NA, and Rob from Generation NA will probably be on the next episode.
Hopefully. In a couple maybe.
Yeah, we had the interview scheduled, and he got sick, so that will be coming forthright. But what is your drink?
My drink is called Nope. It's that's what it's called.
Nope.
It's called Nope.
Drinknope.com.
Strawberry basil smash. It has 90 calories. How many? I don't know how. Oh, it's 12 fluid ounces. I had to cut it.
It's a little
with club soda.
A little thick, which is good. Make it go farther.
Yeah. It says, "Want a drunk? Text your ex."
Nope.
Which I thought was interesting.
Definitely. I think there were a lot.
I like the packaging. It's different.
It is.
And it's not, I'm not saying it's different and it's bad. I just don't think it's something that
It wouldn't be a go-to for you.
It's not going to be a go-to for me.
For being a strawberry basil mash, I'm getting a little bit of black licorice in it. I don't know why. I don't know.
I don't taste that, but
no, it's good. It's good. If that's your jam, it's not my jam, but
it's good. I like it. But I feel like it's a little heavy.
It is. Yeah. It almost looks like a cider, to be honest.
Yes.
But mine is a juicy IPA from our friends at Strive. Strive's out of Connecticut. That's a whopping 70 calories for a juicy IPA, which is about par for the course, I think. One thing I like about the Strive juicy IPA is it's not quite as fruity as like Sam Adams. They have their Just the Haze, which is the juicy IPA, but it's real fruity. Like I think you'd say fruit forward. This is lighter on the fruit. Probably more on the IPA, which is why you probably don't love it because you're not an IPA person, NA or otherwise.
I'm really wanting the heavy on the fruit.
You want more fruit.
I want more fruit. More fruit.
Mm-hmm. But again, that's another one that we got from Generation NA, which I'm like, I might have to look up Strive and actually order a 6-pack of that because I would take a little more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have successfully pretty much gone through everything that we've had.
I'm almost finished with my
I don't even know.
gin.
Maybe we should just call them and say, hey, we're coming over.
I was going to say, by the time we figure
we're
out how to do
come
a Zoom
over
thing,
and
we'll
maybe podcast with you, just live.
Yeah, we could just do it live in person. I need a third mic, but that's not a problem. We can make that work.
I don't know.
We can make that work.
I don't think we can do that, but
we can.
Maybe.
We can. I got 3 plugs. Boom, done.
But I don't know if scheduling would work out for people.
Schedule.
You know, the schedule.
Stupid schedule. Calendars always get in the way. Anyway, that's coming up soon. But yeah, we do need to go back over there to a reset. I think the only thing we haven't opened from that is our last trip to Generation NA is the rum. The Monday rum.
We haven't gotten that out.
No, we want to. Once you open it, you kind of need to drink it, refrigerate, and all that good stuff. So we've been waiting. But I
make some summer rum punch.
Summer rum punch. I had to look up a recipe for that. All right, good, Jamie.
Well, I bet in our mocktail whiz.
In the book,
I bet there is one in there. So we will have to get in there and.
It's good enough just to drink straight up, but you're right.
I'm not going to be drinking it straight up.
I know you're not hardcore like that.
I'm like
hardcore NA.
Yeah.
Oxymoron, I think.
I'm hardcore NA.
All right, Coach Amy, before I fall asleep, why don't you tell us about our interview coming up here with Maureen?
Well, we have, I can't talk. Can you edit that out?
No, you just keep on going.
Okay.
That's the joy of live podcasts.
Well, Maureen is back, and it's Maureen Benkovich, and she is the heart behind the Sober Fit Check. And she started her alcohol journey in high school and unknowingly charted the path that shaped decades of drinking in her life. She is a certified gray area drinking coach, and she now dedicates herself to helping others escape the cycle of drinking shame and then the false escape it promises. And she is also in a new book that is out called the Life Coaches Toolkit, and it is a compilation of several life coaches and coaches who put their best tips, suggestions in this book. And so we are going to be talking to her about her story and then also how it has led her now into being an author. So it's really cool. So here is that interview. We are here today again with a good friend of mine and a fellow coach, Maureen Benkovich. Did I get it right?
You did.
Awesome. And we're just going to chat a little bit, get a little bit information from our past interview that we did. Maybe we'll just do a little recap, but we're going to put in the show notes our interview that we did with you. Probably it's been over a year, I think now. So. Wow, it's crazy to see that. And then we're going to jump into a project that you were a part of, and the book is called The Life Coaches Toolkit, and you wrote a chapter on it, and so I'm really excited about that, and I want to just ask you some questions about that when we get to that part of the interview. So, you want to just tell us where you're from, and what your coaching is all about?
Well, it's great to be here with both of you again. So thank you for inviting me. And it's been almost a year, so a lot has happened in a year.
Yeah.
So my name is Maureen Benkovich, and I live in Annapolis, Maryland, and started coaching in 2021 after I went through a coaching program myself and just realized that was the answer for me, and I wanted to do the same for other people. I'd always been a sort of a coach as a personal trainer and a fitness instructor. I'd had my own training businesses and Pilates studios. And even further back, I had been a pharmaceutical rep at one time. So I was selling antidepressants, which will play into this story about the book. So I've had a lot of different careers. And all throughout that, though, I was drinking. Like many people, I started, in high school. And it just was pretty social all the way through college. There were moments when I went overboard, and that probably now everything I know about drinking, that should have been red flags, telltales, binging, blackouts, that kind of thing. But, in general, my friends were doing it too and laughing it off. And so we didn't really realize what we were doing to ourselves. And then, as I shared with you on the last podcast, after I got married, we struggled quite a bit with infertility and not having children. And that was really the beginning of me tying drinking to stress and trauma and sadness. So that's where, as you know, drinking takes on a whole nother level. And, when we're tying it to those kind of things. And it wasn't conscious. I wasn't like saying, okay, I'm going to drink because I'm sad. It was just everybody was doing it. And then I just started doing it more because I was really confused about my identity as a woman. And this is like now 2 years looking back after not drinking, I can take a look at this. All of my friends are having children, building their families, and I'm consistently not, and miscarrying, and even a failed adoption, all very, very painful things. And really, you're never brought up to think, well, what will you do if you're not a mother? I was brought up in a family that's what you did, right? You went to school, you got married, you had kids, and everybody around you was doing the same thing. So I felt very lost. But what I could do really well was be a party girl. And I took that on wholeheartedly. Yeah. And at the same time, I'm also very much into health. And so I left the pharmaceutical industry and started my own personal training business when that was a new thing, to have private personal trainers, and turned that into a good business. But I was starting to feel out of alignment with, here I am preaching health, taking care of yourself, eating right, working out. And then on the weekends, I'm drinking. And I certainly would have never wanted any of my clients to see the way I was drinking. So I was sort of hiding it, and the living out of alignment is what really started to cause anxiety and stress and depression and all sorts of issues about, self-image and that sort of thing. And that continued into my 50s. I'm 58 now. So, and I stopped drinking 2.5 years ago. And it but I started thinking about it like in 2014, like, hey, you're drinking too much. You've got to do something about this. And as you know, it's a common statistic that people start thinking about it and then maybe like don't do anything for 5, 7, 10 years. I experimented in and out, actually did figure competitions, fitness competitions where you couldn't drink because you're up on stage and trying to look shredded. So that was one of the things. You obviously didn't drink, but I didn't take that time while I wasn't drinking to look at my drinking and do the inner work about why I was drinking. So when the shows were over, I'd go right back to drinking. So I could stop for periods of time, but then I would go back to drinking, and sometimes even more than when I had stopped. And that was really taking a toll on my mental health.
I can completely agree with that. I mean, when we go on with the mental health, but I want to ask you before we get into, the book and that is the part that you're doing these fitness competitions. So what alcohol does to your body. Like or how much did you know? I mean, you knew it wasn't good for you, and it's harmful.
It impact your physique, right?
So I knew it wasn't good for me, like everybody knows, right? Alcohol's not good for you. But I definitely thought, and so did many people and do in the fitness field, that, you can work hard and play hard. And I was younger then too, don't forget that. But I would think you could sweat it out. You could detox for a few days. So I wouldn't drink during the week. And I would, eat really healthily and punish myself with workouts. And then get back into that cycle on the weekend. Very common, like detox, retox cycle. And I would continuously do that. So I was lying to myself, because there was another part of me, certainly, that I would sometimes, when I'd wake up at 3 a.m, anxious and my heart beating and mad at myself that I did it again, I would literally look in the mirror and say, what are you doing? You are killing yourself. You're killing yourself. And I knew that, but I didn't understand all the physiology. So even when I was a pharmaceutical rep and we talked about antidepressants and we learned everything about the brain and antidepressants, and I'm talking to doctors about antidepressants, we were not taught about alcohol and antidepressants, that you should not take the two together.
Sure.
We're not taught about how alcohol is a depressant. So no, I didn't. I know so much more now than I knew as a pharmaceutical rep.
Isn't that fascinating? I mean, because I know those thoughts that you said, you're killing yourself. Boy, I had those same conversations. Looked right at myself in the mirror and go, what are you doing? This is not good, what you're doing to yourself. But again, no one told me not to. Well, now I take that back. If I'm going to be real honest, don't drink that much when you're, I mean, it wasn't don't drink. It was, well, just don't drink that much.
Oh, Maureen, you're working hard during the week, working out, and then you only drank on the weekends. I mean, it's easy to justify that one. I mean, come on now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, and you also tend to surround yourself with people that are doing what you're doing. Right. So I'm with a bunch of other people. The town I live in is very much a party town. And there's like 80 bars in this small town. And they call themselves, I'm going to see if I get this right, a drinking town with a sailing problem. We're on the water. It's the sailing capital of the world. They call it a drinking town with a sailing problem. It's like they sell T-shirts that say that. They're proud of it. It's a well-known thing. This is a big drinking town. So it was easy to surround myself with other people who were binge drinking like I was. And I would call some of my friends the next day, like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I did that or said that or whatever. And they'd be like, you were fine. Because they don't want to hear it, right? They're equally probably dealing with the same thing, but none of us are being honest with each other. And that's all I needed to hear was, you were fine.
Yeah.
I think this normalcy environment. Yeah,
it is. And I think the other thing that you said earlier was that because those warning signs when you were younger should have, there should have been, because I remember I had some real warnings too. I'm like, and I think back, I'm like, oh my gosh, when you were a teenager, which you don't think, but not everybody was getting blackout drunk.
Right. Huge red flag.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, wow, you had a problem back then. And, you have those waves
Mm-hmm.
of it's okay. And
Yep.
then you're kind of drinking what we would call normally. And then the next thing you know, there would be this blip. It's kind of what I called them. Like, okay, yep, now I've done it again and I can't do that again. So that's really, I think mine morphed into then to the daily drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's great. And we have a great appreciation now for when you were in the fitness, because our son just finished up last fall doing his first um,
Professional,
yeah, not
amateur,
professional, but amateur, but yes. And like the dedication
yes,
that you have to put into that there's so much time and effort and everything that you do
Yeah.
when you're getting yourself that physically
shredded.
I mean, that's pretty intense. And then to go out afterwards and be like, okay, now yeah, all right, I've done it. Now
Yeah.
I can go back to my old life.
Well, what's interesting about that, I look back and I loved it. I loved the discipline and working that hard. I could have gone pro actually if I had done one more show. Um, but none of my friends were supportive. They're like, you're not going to do that thing again, are you? That not drinking thing. That's what they would call it.
Oh,
But I remember when I decided to do it, and my trainer was great. He's like, so you can't drink. And I remember feeling relief, like, oh, okay. So I can tell all my friends and I have an excuse. And I felt relief.
Wow. That is huge.
Yeah.
Do
So I knew
you,
it,
yeah,
subconsciously.
right.
like I have the relief. I don't have to. So yeah, so it's great for me to be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And your body and your mind craved it.
Yeah, I'd do it again now. I think about it sometimes. I don't think they have a category in my age anymore though. But it was very challenging and it was very self-confidence building. But still, I didn't have the self-confidence coming out of it, getting
Mm,
back into my drinking friend culture to say, I'm not going to do this because, as you know, it's the only drug where if you decide not to do it, people
yeah.
say, oh, you must have a problem. And if you do too much, people are like, oh, you have a problem. So either way, you can't
Mhm.
win. But I didn't have enough self-confidence to say, you know what, I actually feel better not doing this. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Oh, wow. So now let's take it forward. You've transitioned, you're a coach now. And the self confidence, I think, as we quit drinking, it comes.
Yeah.
I firmly believe it comes. It takes some time because at first
Yes.
we feel naked, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. And then the more we walk in it, the more confidence we get. And that's one of the things that expressing and sharing with a client,
Mm-hmm.
they don't, I mean, I know for myself personally, I didn't believe it. I was like, okay,
Right.
maybe. But, you've been alcohol free for how many years now?
Two and a half. 2.5
Okay.
years.
Yeah. So there you've got that. And so tell us about how you have now gone in and you're now a coach, and tell us who you're working with. And then I want to talk about how you got into writing your chapter in this book.
Okay. Well, it takes a while, as you know, when you come out and you're learning the coaching business, and what kind of a coach are you and who do you want to coach? And typically you coach to people who drank like you. Um, and so I definitely coach to people who binge drink. I coach to fitness people who are stuck in that retox
Mm,
cycle. I coach to women who are childless, not by choice. And I found a whole group called the Childless Collective. I only found that after I stopped drinking, that there are lots of women around the world like me
wow.
who struggles with this. So I coach to that. I also coach with people who are perfectionists, recovering perfectionists who use alcohol to mask any sort of pain that they're in, like I did, because we don't want people to know that we're struggling. Um, so I could, to all those, and also gray area drinking. So I just finished my certification there. And that's really the kind of drinker I was too. I could stop for periods of time, but then I get drawn back into thinking I could moderate. And then I'd be drinking as much or more and right back in my retox, binging cycle before I knew it. But a gray area drinker is someone who can take breaks, has taken breaks, but always gets pulled back in.
Yeah.
And they're secretly feeling bad about their drinking. They're worried about it, but they don't fit the classic addiction labels. So that's kind of where I'm really focusing now, is the gray area drinker and all those other sort of categories that I just listed.
Which is great, because so many people stay stuck in that gray area. It's like, well, I don't have I haven't driven off a bridge, so I must be fine, and about, like, to your earlier point, like, everybody tells me I'm fine and I'm normal and everything's okay. So, oh, I must be fine. I'll just keep ignoring this obvious feeling I have of, this is not right.
Yeah.
I'd have doctors tell me I was fine. I would say to my doctor, hey, she said, what's going on? I'm like, well, I got the courage to tell her. I said, well, actually, I think I'm drinking too much. She'd be like, oh, you work out, look at you look great, don't worry about it.
Wow, sounds like my doctor. Yeah.
That's all I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have fatty liver, just have a couple beers, you'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's far more common than we think. And I think it's just because it's so prevalent in our culture.
Well, and I think doctors, it's a mirror to them too. They may be drinking too. And if I tell you you have a problem and I'm still doing it, well, I can't look in the mirror. So I'll just tell you you're fine too then.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also a whole nother road they don't want to go down, because it's so misunderstood, right? They think addiction, I don't want to get into that. They don't understand the gray area drinking person who doesn't look like the classic alcoholic, right? It's not that at all. It's this person's high functioning. They're working out. They're taking care of their families. They're high performers, but they're drinking more than they want to.
And so many people drink because of the trauma that we've gone through. You went through trauma. So many women that I'm coaching have trauma from their youth. Maybe they've lost a parent at a young age, or a younger age, and they're trying to walk this line, and then we start to create these stories in our head about who we are and how we fit into society. And I don't have maybe I don't have a mom, or I don't have this, and how am I going to get through my whole life this way? And the same, I think probably not the same, but there's that trauma of loss, like what you went through as well. And we're drinking to cover up that pain. And so many people just don't understand. And I don't even think some people even realize at the beginning that that's what they're doing.
No, I didn't realize.
No.
I mean, look at television, right? You always see if someone's sad or someone dies, you're like, oh, you better have a drink. Let's have a drink. Let me take my friend out for a drink. That's what we've learned, right? We've been conditioned, and we see it everywhere. But ironically, you can't grieve something, grieve loss, grieve loneliness, grieve a divorce, grieve, children, parents, whatever, when you're drinking. You stay stuck in the grief. You can't move through the grief.
Yes.
Right.
And that is so true. And and so many people, they're so scared of the pain.
Yeah.
And they're stuck in the pain, and they don't realize if they could just take those few steps, that they can not the pain will still be there, but they can change the way they're living with it, I guess, is what I want to say.
Yeah. I think about what Brene Brown says. She's amazing, famous shame researcher. And she says vulnerability kills shame. But we're also afraid to be vulnerable. Like, I was afraid, and also because people didn't understand my grief, because it wasn't tangible to anybody else. I was afraid to tell people that I was struggling with this. And rightly so. Some people will be like, whatever, you can do whatever you want on the weekends. You can travel all you want. Take my kids for the weekends. They would see, like, say insensitive things like that. So eventually you learn to clam up and suppress your grief and drink and hide, but what I've learned now, and I talk about it, is being vulnerable, because someone out there may hear that and say, wow, I'm struggling with that too. And I want to, talk to that person who understands me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's move into the Life Coaches Toolkit by Eric Severinsen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put that up there. Matt will show a picture of it, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, I can just go like that.
But tell us about how you got involved in this book, because you wrote a great chapter about alcohol, and how I don't know the title because I'm not going to look at it, but you can tell us about that too, and just like how you got involved in it, because it is a great resource. So I would highly recommend it to anybody who's in the coaching field, to pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, talk about becoming more confident since not drinking. And here I am going out in this coaching business, trying to promote myself, getting on social media platforms that I've never been on. And I started just playing around on LinkedIn and, just a few posts here and there that I coach around depression, alcohol, and anxiety. And Eric Severson, who's an author, who's put together a number of these books for different professions. So if you go to Amazon, you'll see his like entrepreneurs toolkit. There's different kind of toolkits for different professional groups. He reached out to me, and it was all because of my new self-confidence, and I'm just putting myself out there. And he said my story spoke to him because he had struggled with depression and alcohol at one point. And he no longer drinks, has an amazing life, like climbs Mount Kilimanjaro and puts together all these books. But he's a great guy. And he said, would you be interested in writing this chapter? And, the imposter syndrome side of me was like, who am I to do that?
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I know who I am to do that. I'm a person who suffered with depression and anxiety and who drank alcohol through it. And I've learned so much about it. And I have the background from pharmaceuticals, understanding depression, and I have the personal experience. So I thought, yeah, I'll write that chapter in that book. And I didn't fully understand that it was geared towards life coaches. I didn't really know exactly what I was getting involved in, but I'm like, I'll do it. So it was a challenge. I really admire people who write entire books, because it took me an entire summer to really like lay this chapter out and get it down to the amount of words that it had to be. And there was a format where you write about your topic, and then at the end you give sort of a worksheet or a process for other life coaches to give their clients, or even people to go through, because there's plenty of life coaches, as you know, in different fields. And maybe they're an executive business coach, and they start to suspect that the person they're coaching, part of their issue is they're actually drinking more than they should be. And so I talk about how to coach to that person with compassion and not judgment. And here's some, tools that you can go through to help bring out their beliefs around drinking and alcohol.
So what would be like the key concept that you highlight in your chapter?
Well, I do talk about, so it's called Understanding the Role of Alcohol in Anxiety and Depression, because so many people, including myself, were drinking due to being depressed and sad or stressed or anxious. So here we are drinking and causing and exacerbating the very problems we're drinking for. So you're stuck in this cycle. And without really understanding chemically what happens, so I actually break it down in the chapter. And the chemical responses. As soon as we drink alcohol, whatever kind it is, however pretty it looks, and whatever glass, how we doctor it up, our body knows the moment it crosses our lips, it's a toxin. And it goes into this whole cascade of events to get rid of this toxin. And so around anxiety, one of the things it does is your brain is a storehouse of chemicals, and it sends off these signals. And when you are drinking alcohol, which is a dirty drug, so a dirty drug can do two things, right? It's a stimulant and a depressant at the same time. That's known as a dirty drug.
I love that.
I didn't know that.
I love that.
I like that.
I did not know that. So we're going to start calling that the dirty drug. I love that.
And it is a drug.
Yeah, it's a drug.
Yeah. And the alcohol industry has worked very hard to get that statement, drugs and alcohol. That was a long time ago. They lobbied hard for that. But, science is starting to back up what it really is. So it's a dirty drug. So it's a stimulant and a depressant at the same time. So you might feel the stimulant effect at first, right? You're getting this massive hit of dopamine. But then your brain goes, whoa, that's too much dopamine. So we better release these counter chemicals. One of them is a natural depressant called dynorphin, right? So it's countering the uplifting effects of alcohol, and also the depressant effects. Your body counters that as well by releasing adrenaline and cortisol. That's countering the depressive effects. So you have all these chemicals being released in your body, and then your body's working really hard. And it's like, okay, liver, let's like shuttle all the calories from dinner. Let's store that in fat. We can't deal with that right now. So there's your weight gain, right? And then your liver is working overtime to transform alcohol into something you can get rid of. And in that transformation process, it actually becomes super toxic, even more toxic than when you first drink it. And I can never say this word, but it's acetylcholine. So that's even more toxic than the ethanol that you originally drink.
Yes.
Right. So it goes through this process. The whole point is your body knows this stuff is bad, and your brain is trying to bring you back down to homeostasis because it doesn't like that massive dopamine hit, but you do. And so unknowingly, you're coming down off that massive dopamine hit, and your brain goes, ooh, there's another part of your brain called the animal part of your brain, literally, the amygdala, right? It's going, let's do that again because I want to feel that. But you can never have that initial high as you did from the first drink. So with each successive drink, you're actually going down and down and down. More dynorphin is being released, more adrenaline, more cortisol, and more alcohol. So you've got a whole bunch of chemicals. So that's why when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your body's been working overtime to get rid of the alcohol, so you're not really sleeping well, even though you're passed out. You wake up and you've got adrenaline and cortisol circulating, and that's why you're anxious because those are stimulants. And that's why you have that anxiety, and that's why you're going, oh my God, I can't believe I did that again, you know, that kind of thing. So, and then you repeat this cycle. So if you're like me and you drank 3-4 days in a row, I'm a mess.
And then you start to feel better. Right when you're starting to feel better, then you go and you do it again. And it just keeps going. And when you tell somebody that it really can take anywhere from 7 to 10 days for the effects to be completely out of your body, they look at you like you're crazy. Like, no, really, this is science.
Yes, it's science. We're not making it up.
No, we're not making this up. But if you want to have a period of time where you can really start to feel better, for me, it took like at least 14 days till I really started to feel like, oh my gosh, I feel better, because you ultimately can feel worse. Not everybody does, but many of us, I just felt, oh my gosh, what am I doing this for? And that's the your animal brain keeps going, come on, we really want more of that, because that's what it wants it.
Right.
It wants it. It doesn't necessarily find pleasure in it anymore. There's a certain point where it was like, all right, I'm drinking, but this isn't great.
But I love the term anxiety. That's one that's been used in our the sober circles for a while. The National Geographic just had a big article about, and literally used the term anxiety. And it's a good article, but I also just like the fact that it shows that it's pushing forward into more of the, everyday vernacular, that, and that those little steps like that start making it harder for people to deny that it's not a poison, and that it is fun and good for you, or, it's not, it's harmless. Right. So it's great to see that some of, our inner circle kind of terminology is starting to break out into the, more mainstream.
Yeah. And are you finding now, even in your own personal circles that people are more accepting as you have progressed? Now you're a coach, and
you're an author.
Yeah, you're an author now, and you're moving forward. How is that? How is that going?
You want to know the quickest way to clear a room at a party or a bar?
I know.
Tell people what you do.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I think I got to get another drink. Yeah, it's been a challenge, right? I mean, I was seriously the leader of my pack and the major party girl. I was the one who got all the parties together every weekend, so it was a real shocker to my friends. And then you find out who really are your true friends and who were your drinking buddies.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the truth of it. I mean, that is. But I've also met many new friends.
Yeah.
Doing what I'm doing, and I feel propelled, like I told you, to keep moving forward, because I'll never, for me, want to go back to drinking, because I feel so much better. I'm so much happier. Um, I, I, I don't know. I don't think I've revealed this on the last podcast. I'm a bit of a sci-fi geek, and so I always relate to people. The Matrix, the movie The Matrix.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we've gotten out of the Matrix.
Right.
And the rest of the world is still in the Matrix. So it's no judgment, right? It's just, but I would never choose to go back into the Matrix. I'd rather stay out here where I'm learning all the time and growing all the time. And that's what I think for me, the coaching is about with others, is giving them the knowledge to make the decision. Because when you truly understand the science, alcohol is addictive. So my friends we have some conversations, and they'll ask a little bit here and there, but not too deep, but that's okay. But the fact is, alcohol is an addictive substance, and we're all drinking it. We're all messing around with this addictive substance. And so when you point that out, and then you talk about the science of it, and really their own personal experience, when they think about it, they're like, actually, yeah, I am anxious even when I'm not drinking. I didn't know that was why. I didn't understand that. Or after a couple of days of drinking, I feel really low. I never really connected the two.
Well, I love that you have this chapter in the Life Coaches Toolkit, because Amy and I are about ready to finish up our marriage coaching certification, and that alcohol part comes up and can be a key component in that. So, while I may not, even if you're not married, there may be alcohol, or if you're not a business executive or one of these other type of coaches, right? Like alcohol almost inevitably is going to, the number of people that drink, 85% of the country still is drinking, is almost inevitably going to work its way into a scenario where it's impacting, whether it's, their job, their marriage, their whatever. And so I think that's a great resource to everybody else who's in this book with you.
Yeah. And giving them that worksheet at the end that just talks about, so here's how you might want to approach someone who's drinking, because if you've never had the training, you may not understand, and you certainly don't want to come off as non-compassionate or blaming, or just saying, just stop, or hey, you should really stop that, because that's just not going to help. And so getting other coaches to understand how to approach it with that self-compassion, and get the client to be more curious about their drinking versus hiding it from the coach, because that's not going to help them in whatever else they're being coached on.
Right.
Yeah.
That is so true, because my experience wasn't with a coach, but it was with a therapist. I mean, I didn't fit the picture of someone who would come in and have a problem with alcohol.
Right.
And in her defense too, I even told her once, I said, well, I would have lied to you. So, in that moment, but there wasn't even the opportunity. Like, she didn't even ask the questions, because she was just like, oh, she's
not showing up in other
not,
ways.
It's not, well, yes, of course she's anxious, and she's feeling this way. And I think that chapter right there is, like, here's like, well, you could ask just a few questions, and just prompt it, because it might even be like, you know what, maybe you don't, but maybe you should think about it. Are you drinking right after work? Are you, and why are you drinking? Those types of things, because I never equated it. I just equated everything to my drinking to being, oh, well, it was stressful at work today.
I deserve this.
I deserve this. But then tomorrow, I don't realize that anxiety really was not was partially maybe prompted by my job, but more so it was because my body was detoxifying and getting all the alcohol out, and the anxiety was coming out.
Yeah, because you still have the cortisol and the adrenaline
You
swimming around.
bet.
Yep.
And
You're wondering why you're stressed.
Exactly.
And that's
And
it. So then what do? We take antidepressants and anti-anxiety
Yep.
drugs and still drink.
Yes.
So you're
And
also decreasing the effectiveness of those medications.
yeah.
Yep. Just create a train wreck.
And then, like you, and I think you aren't on antidepressants anymore, are you?
You know what? I actually decided to go back on one.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
this will be the first time I went on one without drinking alcohol, and understanding so much more, I went on something different. It's a norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitor, so not a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which is the most common class.
Yep.
And it also helps with people with ADHD with focus. So I'm on a super low dose, and it's been really good because I guess I should give you a backstory. So 2 years into not drinking, that childless grief came around again at holidays, like it always did.
Sure.
And the first Christmas not drinking, you're kind of like, oh, this is what it's like to not drink during Christmas. And you go through your first year of all the firsts of not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And the second Christmas of not drinking, it was like, oh, this is how it's different from the first year. Well, for whatever reason, this third year, it hit me emotionally because the kind of grief that I have keeps coming, right? Because all my friends are now having children, are getting married, and there's weddings, and they're becoming grandparents. So it's always like the loss of what I'll never have. And holidays are very family centric.
Mm-hmm.
So my point in telling you this is I got hit with another big wave of depression. So I'd been off antidepressants for 2 years, but I got hit with this massive wave of depression. And it was this grief that I still never really processed. Because like I said, when you're drinking, you don't move through the grief. You stay stuck in it and focused on it. So it was actually an opportunity for me to finally process this last piece. And as I said, I found a group called the Childless Collective. I've joined it. It's been incredible support. And I did decide to go back on an antidepressant for a while. But without drinking alcohol is a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, I know that my antidepressants, when I was still taking it, like after I quit drinking, they worked better. I mean, they were working.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is really good. And it took me 3 years being off of it to finally, well, I had talked to my nurse practitioner about it, but it took me like up to 3 years to say, okay, maybe I could wean myself off. And still with her going, you can always go on them again if you need it. And so far I have not, but I am interested, like you just said, with ADHD, because I have not been diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure
You took a lot of the boxes.
I can check off most of those
me too.
boxes. And not being able to, at times, being able to concentrate and get things done the way I, feel like, okay, what is going on? Why can't I sit and do this task? So,
Well, I think the problem, Maureen, to your earlier examples, is if you drink at the same time, you have such a weird concoction of chemicals, right? And it's just like a fire extinguisher. You need the right fire extinguisher for the right type of fire, right? There's halon, there's CO2, there's water, right? And the right tool for the right job. You don't know until you step back and get rid of the gasoline you keep pouring on the fire. You know what kind of fire you really have, or is there even a fire at all, right?
That's right.
So some people like myself go off. Some people like you go off and then switch to something completely different. We've known some people who have, gone off for a while or quit and then said, you know what, I need this. But you can't accurately address your situation until you remove all the other chaos that you're causing with that alcohol.
Yeah.
Then you can reset.
Yes.
And then to identify what, if anything, you need to be on. And I think we've heard many stories of people getting, the right fire extinguisher for the right fire.
Yeah. You can take a quiz. It's called the Braverman neurotransmitter quiz. It's just about as accurate as a urine test. And you can see, through this test, like what you're probably deficient in. And most people are drinking due to like low GABA, right? That's your natural calming neurotransmitter. And we're drinking for anxiety because we're constantly, especially in our society, in fight and flight mode. We work hard. We don't stop. We go, go, go. And so most of us are using alcohol to calm our central nervous system. So if you recognize you're a person who's low in GABA, there are other things you can do nutritionally, supplementally, food-wise, somatic exercises that can calm down your central nervous system. Yeah. So identifying that, or if you're a person who's low in serotonin or dopamine, which I turned out to be, and I knew that there was a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. It's an older antidepressant called Wellbutrin, but it's the only one that had a major warning about not drinking at all. And I think that I consciously was like, I don't want to go on that because I don't want to stop drinking. So what does that tell you about?
Yeah. And alcohol? Is that not funny? That was what we were on.
I drank on it for years. Didn't really, I don't know how much it actually helped then, but who knows what I did to my body, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so you really disrupt the effectiveness of any antidepressant or any mental health sort of anti-anxiety drug. So you really just might as well not take it.
Yeah.
Right. And continue to drink. I'm all for taking antidepressants if you talk to your doctor. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But don't throw the alcohol on top of it.
Yeah, don't. Well, what's up next for you? What's going on and what can you share with us?
Yeah, so I am developing my own 6-week alcohol reset course, kind of combining my 2 certifications, as I was sharing with you. So not only like the behavioral cognitive, but also the physiological. I'm pulling in my personal trainer side and helping people to, when we remove the alcohol, you need to find the other coping mechanisms for your body. So through my gray area drinking training with Jolene Park, who's fabulous, I've just learned so much about how to resource to people, let's try these resources, and hopefully we can build a toolbox for them that they can turn to these resources instead of drinking, because life is going to be lifey, right? Like stuff's going to continue to happen. So learning how to handle stress differently and have more resilience because you're not drinking, and learning like, okay, I need to do a breathing exercise right now, or I need to get outside and early morning sunlight, or get a better sleep routine. How much protein am I eating? Am I drinking water? Am I actually drinking alcohol because I'm dehydrated all the time? So like getting people to really look at these basic things. So I'm excited about that direction because it really fits with my background as a fitness and personal trainer. And then the big thing is I'm working on a podcast with somebody else. So we're going to do a podcast together, and very excited about that.
I'm excited about that too.
We will volunteer to be your first interview.
Yeah, we would love to be on. We would really love to be on with you guys. I think it's going to be great. And I know it's like going to be a coast to coast.
Yes, so it's a coach on the West Coast and a coach me on the East Coast, and we're similar but different. So we kind of thought it was fun to bring those contrasting ideas together.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, the book is called Life Coaches Toolkit. Maureen, thank you for being on. Where can people find out more about you and your life coaching?
So my website is Sober Fit Chick. So you can check that out, or my Instagram is Sober Fit Chick as well. And I also have a freebie resource that has 4 coaching videos from me and a workbook and a preparation list to have your first alcohol-free weekend. So if you're a person like me who didn't drink during the week, but always the weekends ruined your, ability to stay away from alcohol, I have your alcohol-free weekend toolkit. So it's free. It's a great resource. So you can get that from my website, or you can DM me on my Instagram and I'll send you the link.
That is so awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. And, I can't wait to hear more about your upcoming podcast and all the other things that are coming our way from you. So thanks so much.
Thank you. I'll look forward to flipping the chairs and having you be the guest.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Maureen, for joining the Alcohol-Free Marriage More podcast yet again. Love the book. I think, as we talked in the podcast episode, the alcohol facet can roll into other areas of the world. So I think being part of that book is a great
and really being aware that a lot of times the problems that people have, one of the big symptoms is how much are they drinking?
Yep. Trying to improve in a certain spot of your life. You might want to improve that too.
Yeah.
That will
be aware. The awareness.
Yep. Whether it's your marriage or your leadership or your whatever, a little less booze might help out there, kids.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this week on the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. We'll check you out next week. Until then, I'm Matt along with Coach Amy, wishing you peace and love from the cornfield. And we are
out.